Good day, everyone. I am Angela May G. Sinaginan, your reporter from Group 1. Today, I will discuss the first part of the Treaty of Paris, signed on December 10, 1898. This treaty officially ended the Spanish-American War, but more importantly, it had a profound impact on the fate of the Philippines and our struggle for independence. To fully understand its significance, let's look at the historical background. Before this treaty, the Filipinos had already been fighting against Spanish rule for centuries. The Philippine Revolution began in 1896, led by the Katipunan under Andres Bonifacio and later Emilio Aguinaldo. By 1898, Filipino revolutionaries had gained significant ground, and Aguinaldo had been declared Philippine independence on June 12, 1898. However, what many did not expect was that the war between Spain and the United States will ultimately decide the future of the Philippines, without any Filipino representations in the negotiations. The Treaty of Paris begins with the Preamble, which introduces the officials from the United States and Spain who negotiated the terms of peace. These representatives, called plenipotentiaries, were responsible for deciding what would happen to the territories of Spain, including the Philippines. On the American side, the plenipotentiaries included William R. Day, a former U.S. Secretary of State, Cushman K. Davis, a senator from Minnesota, William P. Frye, a senator from Maine, George Gray, a judge and former senator, Whitelaw Reid, a journalist and diplomat. On the Spanish side, the representatives were Don Eugenio Montero Rios, the president of the Spanish Senate and the head of the Spanish delegation, Don Buenaventura de Azusa, a lawyer and former minister, Don Jose de Garnica, a member of the Spanish Supreme Court, Don Wenceslao Ramirez de Villaurrutia, a historian and diplomat, and lastly, Don Rafael Serrero, a military officer. The important thing to note is that there were no Filipino representatives in this treaty. Even though we had already declared our independence months earlier, this meant that the future of the Philippines was being decided by foreign powers without consulting the Filipino people. The preamble also refers to the Protocol of Peace, signed on August 12, 1898, which marked the temporary ceasefire between Spain and the U.S. This protocol set the stage for the formal negotiations in Paris, where Spain and the U.S. would decide who would control former Spanish territories, including Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Now, let's move on to Article 1. This article declares that Spain completely gives up all claims of sovereignty over Cuba. In other words, Spain no longer had control over Cuba, which had been fighting for independence for decades. At first glance, this may not seem directly related to the Philippines. However, it is very important because Cuba's situation mirrored that of the Philippines. Both Cuba and the Philippines had been fighting for independence from Spain. However, unlike Cuba, which was on a clear path to independence, the Philippines would not be granted the same recognition. In reality, the Treaty of Paris was not about giving independence to former Spanish colonies. It was about transferring control from Spain to the United States. This is especially important when we look at the later articles of the treaty, which show how the Philippines would soon be handed over to the American rule. Even though Spain was losing its colonies, it still wanted something in return. As we will see in the later articles, Spain sold the Philippines to the United States for $20 million, treating our homeland as if it were mere property rather than a nation fighting for their own freedom. Thank you for listening.